This video will contain discussion of mental illness and disorders, as well as some mentions of self-harm and suicide. Your discretion is advised. Hello, all you beautiful beings. Well, this has been a long time coming. A lot's gone on in the past few months. Stress, drama online and off, second SSI denial, and massive bouts of writer's block. But now I'm back with the goal of talking more about systemic oppressions that intersect with and exacerbate each other, and ways we can move past them. Which brings me to a topic that is very close to my heart. A common issue discussed in the discourse about disability justice is the romanticization of mental health problems and mental illnesses, and how it relates to mental health as a whole being trivialized or otherwise not taken seriously. Media throughout history has correlated tragedy with brilliance and creativity, from Romeo and Juliet to the Byronic hero and his descendants, to modern-day depictions on shows like 13 Reasons Why and within various online communities. I can tell you firsthand that depression and anxiety disorders are a hindrance to creativity, not an accelerant. My writer's block almost always comes from anxiety, whether it's fretting that my message won't be coherent enough, and thus being too nervous to even get started, or getting stuck when I'm halfway through a script because of something going on in my personal life. I've always been very creative, but my illnesses make it difficult to get anything done. And I know I'm not the only one. Worse than that, the romanticization of suffering can often lead to the romanticization of more serious issues. There are two common ways for romanticizing suicide that spring to mind. The first is the tragedy of the gifted artist, and the second is the idea of a person being too beautiful for this world. The former is commonly seen when celebrities of any notoriety die by suicide. The latter is something I've seen a lot on social media, as people post images such as those likening the person who died by suicide to an angel that has been called back to heaven. Sometimes these ideas are coupled, exalting and almost deifying the person, as if to say their suicide makes sense, or, I hate to say it because of how bad it sounds, justified. In all honesty, I hesitated on including social media in this, since a lot of that side of mental illness romanticization comes from teenagers and young adults. As I've said many times, I personally went through my teen years with depression, anxiety, and body image issues without social media as an outlet. And even now, I recognize that having a healthy sense of humor about my mental health and disabilities can be a valuable coping mechanism. With that being said, it's worth pointing out, because A, social media still perpetuates the romanticization of mental illness, and B, the fact that so many young people partake in it is a reflection of how ingrained these messages have become in our society, to the detriment of any real solutions. By making mental illness out of something cool to have, you take the focus away from real people struggling. People who self-harm no longer receive help because their parents view it as a trend rather than a cry for help. Those struggling with bulimia aren't taken seriously because they can't wrap their fingers around their wrists. Depressed teenagers are just trying too hard to fit in, so their doctor brushes away their concern about not having left their bedroom in over a month. Suicidal students are being turned away by their teacher because who hasn't tagged a friend in the "I want to die" Facebook meme? People aren't receiving help because others are portraying mental illness as something lighthearted. Now you might be asking yourself, but Phoenix, Don't you know that most of these people are self-diagnosing? That's possible. I'm not a doctor and I don't personally know the people behind most of these messages. And just for the record, I'm not against self-diagnosis, and I'm not against it for a reason. There is a serious lack of access to mental and behavioral health care, particularly in the United States. According to a study conducted by the National Council on Mental Health, 42% of Americans saw cost and poor insurance coverage as the top barriers for accessing mental health care, while 25% reported having to choose between getting mental health treatment and paying for daily necessities. With that in mind, a professional diagnosis is out of reach for many people, especially young people. I personally was first diagnosed with depression and anxiety when I was 16 and still on my parents' health insurance. The stigma surrounding mental health is also a factor. That same study found that 31% of Americans worried about being judged for seeking mental health treatment, with the stigma more likely to impact the choices of younger Americans. There's also a cultural gap with seeking therapy, wherein minorities, especially Black people, Latinx people, and LGBTQ+ people, and the various intersections thereof, are more hesitant to seek the help they need for any number of reasons. And all this is not even to mention the rising cost of prescription medications, including antidepressant and antipsychotic drugs, that can make all the difference between a mentally ill person being able to function day to day and them cutting themselves off from the rest of the world. So yes, I understand on some level why there's so much online venting and memeing as coping mechanisms that often lead to mental health issues becoming romanticized. However, the fact remains that this kind of content leads to misinformation, most of which is potentially dangerous. So what can we do? Fortunately, as awareness of mental health has increased in recent years, so have resources to help make it more accessible. Of course, universal healthcare that includes a mental health package is the ideal solution, but right now, resources exist to help marginalized people find help within our communities, whether it's finding a therapist of color or one who specializes in gender and sexuality counseling, help paying for appointments and medications, or just finding support and learning more about mental health. I encourage you to check out the links below, especially if you're a person in need of help. Is any of this going to stop the romanticization of mental illness by the media, corporate entities, and even people using social media? Probably not, but it is a step in the right direction. Romanticizing healing and recovering, not suffering and misery, is what the world needs more of. Thank you for watching. Again, please check out the sources and links below, and don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it. There's always going to be someone around who will help you. And as always, peace, love, and stay hydrated.